I knew something was wrong the second I stepped into the office that morning. You can tell when a room feels heavy, like the air knows something you don't. People weren't talking, just exchanging those quick, guilty glances people give when they know a secret they're not supposed to say out loud. My gut tightened. And then I saw it, the conference room door closing, my boss inside with the very person who had been circling me for months like a vulture. Her name was Madison Hale, and she was smiling. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but something about that smile felt like a punch I hadn't received yet. I headed to my desk, powered on my computer, and tried to focus. Today was supposed to be big. Today was supposed to be the day I finally got promoted to senior operations manager after 3 years of grinding through impossible deadlines, messy clients, and presentations that kept me up till 2 a.m. I had earned it. Everyone knew it. Even the regional director had once said, "You're the backbone of this office, man. Just stay patient." So, I did stay patient. I stayed professional. I stayed consistent. But apparently that wasn't enough. I was halfway through answering emails when a notification popped up. Mandatory meeting, all staff, 10 a.m., conference room A. My pulse kicked up. This was it. Promotions were always announced in all staff meetings. My leg bounced under the desk, and I tried to slow my breathing. I wanted this. I deserved this. And I wasn't ashamed of admitting it. When the clock struck 10, I headed to the conference room. Everyone filled the seats, whispering, adjusting ties, checking their phones. I sat near the front, straight-backed, trying to hide the tremor of anticipation in my hands. My boss, Richard, entered with that practiced corporate smile he wore whenever he needed to look approachable. Madison walked behind him with a folder tucked under her arm like she was carrying a newborn trophy. "Good morning, everyone," Richard began, clasping his hands together. "Today, we're excited to announce a leadership change that we believe will elevate our operations department." Operations department. My department. My chest tightened with both pride and nerves. I straightened my tie. Richard continued. "After reviewing performance metrics, leadership qualities, and overall potential, we are pleased to promote." I swear my heart actually stopped. Madison Hale to senior operations manager. For a moment, the room blurred. I stared straight ahead, but my vision wasn't processing anything, just shapes and noise. Applause erupted around me, hands clapping, people smiling politely, and Madison doing that fake humble expression people practice in their bathroom mirror. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I didn't breathe. I had worked for that promotion. She had only been with the company a year and a half. A year and a half in which she spent more time building relationships than actually doing her job. I'd seen her manipulate conversations, exaggerate her contributions, shift blame onto others, and flirt her way into favorable positions. But I still never thought leadership would choose her over me. Not in a million years. Richard concluded his speech. Madison said a few words about being grateful for this opportunity, and everyone started to break off into small congratulatory groups. I just sat there until the room cleared out. I tried swallowing the burn in my throat. Shock, humiliation, and anger all swarmed together, but the strongest feeling was confusion. I needed answers. I stood up, walked straight to Richard's office, and knocked on the door. "Come in," he said without looking up. I closed the door behind me. "Why her?" He finally looked at me, exhaling like he'd been preparing for this conversation. "Listen. You're a valuable employee." "Richard." I cut him off. "I'm not asking for a compliment. I'm asking for the truth." He leaned back in his chair. "It came down to leadership presence. Madison has a strong ability to influence people. Upper management felt she had better upward visibility." Upward visibility. I repeated slowly, like the words tasted bitter. "So, politics." He didn't answer. That told me everything. I left his office before I said something I'd regret. I walked back to my desk, numb, trying to make sense of the unfairness. I didn't want to believe something shady had happened. I didn't want to be that guy who assumes corruption just because he lost. So I breathed, drank some water, opened my laptop, and tried to gather myself. But then something strange happened. An email popped up on my screen. Subject: "Congrats. Sent accidentally by Madison to the entire office, but immediately unsent, as Gmail sometimes shows. I clicked before it disappeared. Inside was a message she meant to send privately to someone else. We did it. I told you he'd fall for it. They bought everything, and now it's ours. My blood ran cold. We did it? Bought everything? Fall for it? What the hell was she talking about? I stared at the email, stunned.
Who was she talking to?
What did they do? And what exactly had leadership bought? Before I could think further, the message vanished, unsent. But Gmail still leaves that faint gray trace saying, "Message recalled by sender." She had slipped. I leaned back in my chair, heart pounding. The confusion I had felt earlier sharpened into something else, clarity. Something dirty was going on. Something orchestrated. Something involving manipulation or deceit, maybe even fraud. And now I had proof something wasn't clean. That one accidental email flipped a switch inside me. I wasn't going to whine. I wasn't going to move on. I wasn't going to accept this injustice like just another office disappointment.
No.
If Madison stole my promotion through deception, then she didn't just mess with my career, she messed with my future. And I was going to find out exactly what she did.
One step at a time.
One truth at a time. No hints, no planning out loud, no threats. Just the quiet promise I made to myself while staring at the recalled message. I'm getting my career back. And whoever helped her steal it, I'm taking them down with her. The rest of the day moved in slow motion, like my body was present, but my mind was stuck replaying that recalled email again and again. We did it. They bought everything. It's ours. Those words gnawed at me like termites chewing through the foundation of a house. I wasn't imagining things. Madison's promotion wasn't just undeserved, it was engineered. But engineered how?
And with who?
I didn't want to jump into full conspiracy mode, but people don't say things like that unless there's something rotten underneath. I needed to cool my head. So I left the office early and drove home, letting the city blur past my windows. But even the drive didn't clear my mind. I kept thinking, if she and someone else did something, then whatever happened had to leave a trail. People who commit fraud, or even small-time manipulation, always leave trails. Arrogance makes them sloppy. By the time I got home, I knew one thing. Sitting around feeling betrayed wasn't an option. I needed a plan. Not a revenge plan yet. Just a discovery plan. I needed to know what she had done before I decided my next move. I showered, changed into comfortable clothes, and sat at my dining table with my laptop. I opened my work inbox remotely. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. Maybe past emails. Maybe project files. Maybe something she'd messed with. Anything that felt out of place. At first, nothing stood out. Then I opened a shared folder from a major client, one Madison had recently taken over from me, claiming she wanted exposure. At the time, I thought she was being overambitious. Now, I wondered if she had been digging for leverage. As I scrolled through the documents, I noticed something weird. There was a financial projection spreadsheet with a timestamp from 2 weeks ago. The problem? It wasn't created by me. And it wasn't created by any authorized analyst either. The creator field had initials. MH.
Madison Hale.
My eyebrows pulled together. Madison didn't have access to the financial tools required to produce these projections. Only managers did. She also wasn't trained to compile them. Yet here they were, signed under her initials and forwarded to upper management. I opened the spreadsheet. Immediately, I saw it. Errors, inconsistencies, and manipulation. A projected revenue boost that didn't match the client's actual data. Inflated performance numbers. Exaggerated cost savings. Anyone who didn't know the details would think the operations team was crushing it. But anyone who did know the data would realize it was smoke and mirrors. Had she faked performance to look like a star? My pulse sped up. This wasn't office politics. This was falsifying numbers. A serious offense. The more I scrolled, the more red flags I found. She had emailed this manipulated projection to upper management only one day before promotions were being discussed. No wonder they thought she had strong visibility. She wasn't showing them work, she was showing them lies. But there were still missing pieces. She couldn't have pulled this off alone. Someone had to give her access. Someone had to approve things she wasn't qualified to do. And someone had to help her cover her tracks. I kept searching. At around midnight, something interesting surfaced, an old Slack exchange between me and our IT coordinator, Jordan. I clicked through the chat history, not expecting anything meaningful. But then I saw a message from Madison to Jordan sent 2 months ago. Hey, can you give me temporary access to the advanced analytics dashboard? I need to shadow some tasks for training. Jordan had replied, you'll need supervisor approval. And Madison sent back, Richard approved it. He said it's fine. Just temporary. My heart sank. Richard? My boss? The same man who sat in his office and calmly told me it came down to leadership presence. The same man who couldn't look me in the eyes during the announcement? Had he been part of this? Or had she lied to Jordan about his approval? Either way, someone enabled her access. Someone let her into systems she wasn't trained for. Then I saw the final message in the thread. Access granted. Let me know when you're done. So she got temporary access, which meant she could have copied data, modified files, drafted fake projections, and uploaded documents that made her look like a miracle worker. A slow burn of anger spread through my chest. This wasn't office drama anymore. This was manipulation, deceit, and possible fraud, all tied to my stolen promotion. But I needed more. More proof. More clarity. The next morning at work, I kept my composure, pretending everything was normal. I greeted people, answered emails, attended meetings. But beneath my calm exterior, I was following one lead at a time. I approached Jordan casually near the break room. Hey man, I said. Quick question. Did Madison ever get access to the analytics dashboard? He looked up from his coffee, surprised. Yeah, a while back. She said Richard approved it. And did he? I asked gently. Jordan shrugged. I assumed so. I didn't check. She said she needed it for training. Training? A convenient lie. Did she ever ask for access again? I asked. Yeah, he said after thinking for a moment. She came back like a week later and asked for her access to be extended. She said she was working directly with him. Directly with Richard? I repeated. Yeah. She said she was helping him prepare for client reviews. My jaw clenched. So she framed it as if she was assisting him. Either she manipulated him, or he was involved. Thanks, man, I said and walked away before he noticed the tension in my voice. I returned to my desk, opened my laptop, and started digging into the system logs. I wasn't supposed to access those logs, but after years of working in operations, you learn where things are hidden. I searched for admin activity tied to her username. Certain entries were restricted, of course, but the timestamps and general descriptions were still visible. Access granted. Files exported. Edits made. Uploads completed. A pattern formed. But the biggest blow? The edits were made at odd hours, late at night, early morning, when she wasn't even scheduled to work. Someone had to approve after-hours authorization. That level of access couldn't happen without managerial sign-off. It didn't take long to spot the connected approval ID. It was Richard's. The truth hit me like ice water. My boss didn't just pick her for the promotion, he helped her steal it. He gave her access. He ignored red flags. He vouched for manipulated numbers. And he handed her the role I had earned. I sat back in my chair, fingers pressed to my lips, forcing myself to breathe. I wasn't emotional anymore. I wasn't hurt. I wasn't confused. Now I was certain. They didn't just take my promotion. They built it on fraud. And I wasn't going to let them get away with it. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying everything I had found. Madison's falsified financial projections, her unauthorized access, her convenient training, the recalled email, and, worst of all, Richard's approval ID stamped across everything like a signature on a confession. The betrayal stung more than the lost promotion. Richard wasn't just my boss. He was someone I respected. Someone who had once pulled me aside and said, "You're one of the good ones." Funny how people can twist a knife while smiling like your friend. By morning, the shock had evaporated, leaving behind something sharper.
Clarity.
If they built her promotion on a house of fraudulent numbers, then all I needed to do was pull out the right brick and watch the whole thing collapse onto them. But I couldn't go charging in like some angry employee crying unfair. That would get me ignored or fired. I needed precision. I needed timing. And most of all, I needed undeniable proof. When I walked into the office, everything felt different. Not the place, me. It was like I'd slipped into a second version of myself, one who watched everyone more closely. People chatted normally, laughing about weekend plans. No one knew that upstairs, the foundation of the company's leadership was built on lies. I went straight to my desk, opened my laptop, and began organizing everything I had collected. Patterns, evidence, timestamps, inconsistencies, everything had to be lined up perfectly. Around noon, while the office buzzed with lunch deliveries and microwaves beeping, I opened the financial projection file Madison had created. Something had bothered me about it. Something felt too polished for her skill level. So I zoomed in on the metadata again. And then I saw it. The spreadsheet wasn't built from scratch. It had been copied from one of my older versions. My structuring style, my formula layout, my formatting, it was all mine. She had taken one of my drafts, altered it, inflated numbers, deleted my name, added her initials, and sent it off as her masterpiece. A cold wave washed over me. This wasn't just fraud. This was identity theft in a corporate sense. Passing my work off as hers. That alone was grounds for serious disciplinary action. But I still didn't have the full picture. And I needed it. So I scheduled an appointment with a client manager whose data had been manipulated in the spreadsheet, Melissa Reeves. She was known for being extremely detail-oriented and absolutely allergic to inaccurate reporting. I emailed her asking for a quick check-in about projections to ensure alignment. She responded within minutes.
Sure.
Conference room B at 3 p.m.
Perfect.
At 3 p.m., I walked into the conference room. Melissa was already there with her laptop open. "What's up?" she asked. I pulled up Madison's projection file on the screen. "I wanted to confirm something," I said. "Do these numbers match what your team reported last quarter?"
She leaned in.
Her eyebrows furrowed almost immediately.
No.
Not even close. I tried to keep my face neutral. "Interesting. Can you walk me through the discrepancies?" Within 30 seconds, she pointed out 3 major inconsistencies, all inflated, all misleading. "Who made this?" she asked sharply. I hesitated. "It's listed under Madison Hale." Melissa sat back, eyes narrowing. "That's alarming." I nodded slowly.
Yeah.
I thought so too. She didn't ask why I was looking at it. She didn't question my motives. She only said one thing. "This kind of misreporting could put us in a very bad position with leadership. Send me everything you have. I'll escalate it." That sentence alone sent adrenaline surging through my veins. Escalate it. The phrase every whistleblower dreams of hearing. But I couldn't just hand her partial information and hope for the best. This needed to be airtight. "Give me a couple of days," I told her. She nodded. "Make sure you're thorough." After the meeting, I returned to my desk and immersed myself in every file, report, and log tied to Madison. The more I found, the uglier it got. She hadn't just manipulated one projection. There were 3, and each one made her look like she was single-handedly boosting our department's performance. Then something even worse emerged. A forwarded email chain, buried in a folder she never meant for anyone to find, revealed communication between her and a vendor. In the thread, Madison asked the vendor to expedite the revised invoice, showing a discount they never actually gave us. The vendor, confused, asked for clarification. Madison responded, "Just adjust it for internal reporting. We don't need it sent to the client. Only leadership needs to see it." My stomach dropped. She was falsifying vendor discounts too. That was grounds for termination. Or legal action. The next morning, I arrived early before anyone else and printed everything. I created 3 folders, one for financial manipulation, one for unauthorized system access, and one for deceptive vendor communication. Each folder was thick enough to feel solid in my hands. I sat at my desk staring at them, thinking about my next move. I could give everything to HR. But if HR was under Richard's influence, the files might mysteriously disappear. I could go straight to corporate compliance, but that might start a slow process that kept me tied up without results for months. I needed someone with power, real power, who wasn't tangled in Richard and Madison's web. And then it hit me. The regional director. The same man who had once pulled me aside and said, "You're the backbone of this office." He wasn't based here. He wasn't influenced by office politics. And he definitely didn't take fraud lightly. I looked up his calendar availability in the system. He was slated to visit our branch in 2 days. 2 days. Enough time to finalize everything. Enough time to make sure nothing slipped through the cracks. As the day progressed, Madison strutted around the office with her newly printed title badge. People congratulated her. She smiled like she owned the place. And every time her eyes crossed mine, she gave me this tiny, satisfied smirk, like she knew she'd beaten me. But she didn't know what I knew. She didn't know what I had. She didn't know what was coming. And Richard didn't either. The two of them walked around like untouchable royalty, unaware that the ground beneath them was shifting, quietly, steadily, waiting for the right moment to crumble. I didn't need revenge. I needed truth. And truth was already sharpening its blade. The day the regional director arrived felt strangely calm, like the air was holding its breath. I got to the office earlier than usual, dressed in a clean white shirt, tie straight, folders organized in my backpack. Not because I wanted to look impressive, but because I wanted to look unshakably professional. If I was going to expose a fraud scheme involving my boss and a newly promoted manager, I needed to carry myself like someone who wasn't afraid of the fallout. I sat at my desk and waited. Employees started trickling in, coffee cups in hand, greetings echoing across the office. Madison strutted in wearing a blazer that probably cost more than my rent, her new senior operations manager, badge shining like a trophy she didn't earn. She gave me that same smug little nod, the one that used to sting but today didn't even scratch me. Richard walked in behind her, adjusting his tie, acting like the king of the floor. He didn't look at me. Maybe he didn't need to. Maybe he thought I had already accepted defeat and moved on. Good. Let them underestimate me. Around 9 a.m., a ripple went through the office. Murmurs, whispers, straightened postures. The regional director had arrived. His name was Daniel Hart, and he had the aura of someone who didn't tolerate nonsense. He shook hands with a few people, greeted some others, and made his way to his temporary office. When he passed me, he paused, just for a second.
"Good morning," he said.
"Morning, sir." He gave me a nod, one that said he remembered me, even if he didn't say it out loud, and continued walking. My pulse kicked up. This was it. I waited 15 minutes, letting him settle, then grabbed the 3 folders from my bag, each one labeled and tabbed, and walked toward his office. My hands weren't shaking. My breathing was steady. Everything inside me had shifted from emotional to surgical. I knocked twice. "Come in," he said. I stepped inside and closed the door quietly behind me. He looked up from his laptop. "What can I do for you?" I placed the folders on his desk. "I have information regarding fraudulent activity within our branch. Substantial information." His expression didn't change, but he sat up straighter. "Explain." I opened the first folder. 2 months ago, Madison Hale requested unauthorized access to the analytics dashboard. I began. She told our IT coordinator that Richard approved it. I've confirmed there was no such approval, at least not formally. She used that access to extract financial data she wasn't trained to handle, then manipulated projections. I slid the printed spreadsheets forward. These projections were inflated and strategically aligned with a promotion cycle. Leadership believed she improved performance significantly, but these numbers are fabricated. He scanned the pages quickly. He wasn't a dramatic man. He didn't gasp or widen his eyes. But the tightening of his jaw told me everything. I opened the second folder. "There's more." She forwarded a request to a vendor asking for a false discount revision, one that never existed. She told them it was only needed for internal reporting. That's deceptive financial representation. I let him read the email chain. He read every line carefully, silently, absorbing each detail like a prosecutor preparing a case. Then I slid the third folder toward him. And here is the system log data showing exactly when she accessed restricted files and who approved the authorization. All after hours. All tied back to Richard's ID. That was the moment his eyes changed. A flicker of something sharper, anger, disappointment, resolve, surfaced. "Why are you bringing this to me?" he finally asked. "Because going through internal channels here would risk the evidence being buried," I said plainly. "And because you're the only person who'll take this seriously." He leaned back in his chair, hands steepled. "Do you understand the severity of what you're alleging?" "Yes, sir." "And you have copies of all this?" "Yes." He nodded once.
Good.
"Leave these with me." I stood, turned to go, then paused. "One more thing," I said. "I'm not asking for anything. Not a promotion. Not recognition. I just want the truth corrected." He studied me for a long moment. Understood. I left his office without looking back. The rest of the day was strangely quiet. Not because nothing happened, but because everything was happening behind closed doors. At around noon, I saw Daniel call Richard into his office. Richard walked in confidently. 30 minutes later, he walked out pale, jaw clenched, sweat visible on his temples. He didn't look at anyone. At 1 p.m., Madison was called in. She strutted inside like she owned the building. She didn't strut out. Her face was flushed, her hands trembling as she gathered her things. When her eyes met mine across the office, something flickered in them.
Fear.
Confusion. And maybe for the first time, regret. She didn't smirk today. She didn't hold her head high. She didn't even speak. She just walked toward the elevators with her badge clutched in her hand. Richard lasted a bit longer. HR and corporate compliance joined Daniel's office around 2 p.m. Papers were reviewed. Voices were raised. Doors opened and closed with the energy of corporate purging. By 3 p.m., Richard walked out holding a white envelope. He didn't return afterward. I sat at my desk the entire time, quietly typing emails, answering calls, doing my job. No victory grin. No satisfaction show. Revenge doesn't need theatrics. Sometimes it's quiet.
Clean.
Surgical. At 4 p.m., Daniel stepped out of his office and approached my desk. "Can we talk?" he asked. I followed him to the conference room. When the door closed, he looked at me with the calm professionalism of someone who had made a difficult but necessary decision. "First," he said, "I want to commend you. What you brought forward was handled responsibly and thoroughly." I nodded. "Second," he continued, "the actions taken today were based entirely on the evidence. Both parties have been terminated effective immediately." I didn't react. I just listened. "And lastly," he said, "there's the matter of the position that is now vacant." My heart thudded once, but I didn't speak. "We reviewed your record. Your work speaks for itself. You should have been promoted long ago." I felt a breath I didn't know I was holding release slowly. "So," he said, standing and extending his hand, "congratulations, Senior Operations Manager." For a moment, I didn't move. Not because I was shocked, but because part of me had already let go of the desire. I didn't need the title to validate me. I wanted justice. And justice was already served. But still, I shook his hand. "Thank you," I said quietly. When I returned to my desk, the office felt different. Not lighter, not happier, just honest. People glanced at me with curiosity, maybe respect. But I didn't need their approval. I opened my laptop and got back to work.
No celebration.
No triumph dance. Just a calm, steady sense of peace. My promotion wasn't stolen anymore. The truth had taken it back. Thanks for joining the fun, you office survivors. Subscribe for more switch flicking drama.